Our next speaker is an inspiring speaker and friend, a 2 times TEDx speaker and founder of Happiness Scientist. She's passionate about helping people live happier and more fulfilling lives. And something that she would like to say is, don't say cannot, say why not. So here to share the power of why not, please give a hand to Sha-En Yeo, the Happiness Scientist.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. Can everyone hear me online as well? Just check. All right. Okay. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
This is the first time I'm telling some of my friends that I'm hearing them speak live in person. The past 3 years in the pandemic, everyone was in square boxes, and you don't quite feel the same level of energy. So I'm here to tell you about the power of why not, but I want to start by asking you some questions that you'll see on the screen. Have you ever heard a voice in your head say, you can't? Yes? Have you ever heard a voice tell you, it's impossible to be done? Or maybe you've heard critics, naysayers, say to you, you must be crazy. If this has been your experience, raise your hands. I know it has been mine. You see, there is this little voice that lives inside our head. I need to move. Then, too far forward? Okay. Yeah, okay, so are you mad? Okay. So there's this little voice that lives inside our head, and I've given it a name. Can you see? Holding in suspense.
Pardon me.
No worries.
Something that's
Good? Okay. So this little voice in my head, I've given it a name, and I highly recommend that you all do. When we name it as a voice, it's no longer part of us. It is just a voice. And I've called Divine Grammy, because it's like a little gremlin telling us a lot of not so helpful, not useful things about ourselves. True? Yeah. And when it says something like, you can't, you're impossible, what if we dared to question the status quo? What if we refused to accept that that's not true? The audacity to question what is existing, to challenge the limits that people present to us, naysayers, critics, cynics, even our own little voice, is what I call the power of why not. Now let's look back a little bit in history. People who were innovators, people who made breakthroughs where nobody dared to do so, all harnessed the power of why not. Famous example, Steve Jobs. How many of you were in the era where computers were big clunky things on the table that took up your entire desktop, cannot even put your coffee? Those who say that confirm in that era one lah. But Steve Jobs asked, why not put that into something that can fit into our pocket? And the smartphone was born. And now none of us can actually live without it, because our lives are all inside that smartphone. Many of you take pictures, many of you send the pictures to your loved ones, connect with people who are overseas. Yet another person, Malala Yousafzai, asked, why not fight for all these girls' education? She put herself on the line, literally, but she gave hope and a voice to millions. More recently, I read about this amazing story in the Washington Post about this lady called April Burrell. She was a 15-year-old girl, like Ava's age, right? Ava, or you're slightly older. Just going about her day-to-day, being a typical teenager, liking to scroll Instagram. No lah. You know why? I'll tell you why she wasn't scrolling Instagram. But I'll tell you later. But she was a typical teenager. She was full of life, making friends, having the typical anxiety that a teenager would have, going about her day-to-day when one day, she collapsed on the floor. She had no physical illness, and no matter what the doctors did, they could not figure out what was wrong with her. Psychiatrists came into the picture. Psychiatrists could not figure out what was wrong with her, but her presenting symptoms were talking to herself, having hallucinations, and all kinds of unfathomable symptoms. They called in neuropsychiatrists and all kinds of doctors whose names I cannot pronounce, and they still could not figure out. And so April was put into an induced coma, while the family and the doctors tried their darnest to figure out what was wrong with her. And in that coma, April lay for 20 years, 2 decades. The physician who was with her in the early years of her life did not give up on her. He tried to investigate and tried all kinds of treatments. Nothing worked. She was still in the same state. When a new doctor came in showing interest in April's case, he said, why not try to figure out what's wrong with April? He took over, and just a few months ago, he tried a new treatment because they found from a blood test that she was actually suffering from lupus. It was undetectable 20 years ago. And so that's April. 3 months ago, because they started the treatment, she woke up. Because the doctors dared to say, why not? And imagine, let's look a bit at her charts. The first one shows before treatment, she had woken up, but they asked her to test her cognitive function, whether she could draw a clock. That was number 1. And then number 2 was after one treatment, and then by a few treatments later, she could accurately draw a clock. Now you may think that the power of why not only resides in people like Steve Jobs, Malala, or even these 2 amazing doctors. But you know what? The power of why not exists in all of us, all of you seated here today.
Why not?
Why not? You know, sometimes when people come to us and tell us all those things, they ask us things like why. When we answer the question why, we are just trying to justify why to do something. But when we ask the question why not, it makes us justify why not do something. Like Eugene says, what are the excuses that you are creating for your life? Why not? In fact, this event tonight, Impactful New You, continuing in New You Cafe. Underlying all this, isn't there a question? Why not a new you? Why not start a cafe to benefit the community? 12 years ago, or maybe 14 years ago, I was a civil servant. I was a teacher. And I was doing very well. I had gotten a scholarship to become a teaching scholar. I was well on track, also my peers would say, to become principal. But deep down, when I asked myself, want to be principal or not? No. So I was there doing a noble job. Yeah. And feeling misaligned on the inside. Yeah, that's why. I feel like I'm going to hear this for the rest of the night. People are going to ask me why not. When I say I don't want to eat this, they say why not?
Anything.
Yeah, then Sha will say why not. So. And then I fell in love with this topic called positive psychology. So I told my mom, I said, Mom, I think I found what I'm looking for. I want to go and study. My daughter was 10 months old, and my husband also works in the civil service. And I said, I want to go. My mom said, why? Can make money, meh? After all, the school fees were a hefty amount, 45,000 US dollars in 1 year. And I was supposed to be on track to become a principal, right? Halfway through the program, I was sitting at a laptop, typing in my resignation letter to MOE. Dear Sir, Madam, I am going to tender my resignation. Now, my parents, upon hearing that not only have I spent 45,000 US dollars to go and study a topic nobody at that time had ever heard before, and now quit my job, the question was, why? And when I told other people that I'm starting my own business, I'm quitting my job, they said, very soon you will be back at a job. But as everyone threw all these words at me, all I could hear in my own head was, why not? I had found something I love to do. I dreamed of a life where I could have the freedom to do what I love, make good money, time for my children. Why not? So I pressed send, and that was that. I resigned, came back to the US without a job. You know, stepping out of your comfort zone can be very scary. I didn't even know how to run a business. Nobody in my family has ever run a business before. In fact, when I went to my first client meeting, I didn't even know it's called client meeting, by the way, at that time. I went and she said, Sha-En, very good. Can we have a proposal? See proposal lah. Someone kneel down and propose to me. I totally did not know. I didn't even know that you could make money just by talking. Many of my speaker friends can relate. Right on. Yeah. So, but I told her, okay. And then just like the swan who looks beautiful on the outside, but the legs paddling very hard underneath, I managed to find someone to tell me how to write a proposal, and I got the job. Well, it brings back memories. But I want to say that, being in your comfort zone is comfortable. It's nice. Why? Humans are pleasure-seeking creatures. When we stay in comfort, it feels really nice. So someone asked me the other day, why would I want to step out of it? Well, because when you do, you step out of comfort into growth. Sure, it's scary. Sure, there are a lot of unknowns. But what if it could bring about a better you? What if you could, based on that new you, create a greater impact? What if you could live the life that you've always wanted to? We won't know. Why not? Until we step out of our comfort zone. So, this was me in 2010. Not so fashionable I am today, as you can tell by that hat. And my daughter, who's there in that stroller, 10 months old, is now 14 years old. And many of you can recognize the courtyard. That is the University of Pennsylvania, Philadelphia. I had no idea what was ahead of me, but I went in there thinking, why not? For the past 13 years, I've had the privilege of sharing positive psychology with so many people here in Singapore, around the world. Just last year, this was also me. I think more fashionable now, standing on the TEDx stage for the second time, just recovering from COVID that morning, test negative, went straight for the speech. 13 years on, I get to do what I love. I get to spend time with my children. I get to contribute financially very well to my family. And it started by thinking, why not? So I want to share with you how to harness the power of why not. First, when you have that little voice that tells you you can't, it's impossible, or when a naysayer says you can't do it, challenge that. Ask yourself, how can I? Eugene said that. How can I? Because when you say how can I, it implies that it's possible. And you just need to find the resources around you. Number 2. What's number 2? I can't even see from here. What's my train of thought? Channel. You know, so many of us focus so much on our weaknesses. Oh my goodness, my alarm. I'm almost done. Yeah, so many of us focus on our weaknesses, right? If I ask you to list your weaknesses, you'll probably come out of it really fast. But in moments where you are thinking, why not? You have to ask, what are my strengths? I knew that I can talk. Even from young, my mom said, 9 months old, you already start talking. So that must be my strength. So I just talk. I also know, because I'm a former badminton player, that if I set my sights on something, I'm going to make it happen. If in the process of trying to do something great, you only focus on your weakness, you are going to be put down. Just like Eugene said, we'll be mired and stuck in adversity. Last of all, connect. Connect with what matters deeply to you. We look around and we see many people tell us what they want to do. Well, they can do what they want to do. But what do you want to do? What do you connect most deeply with? It's about time to start asking that question. So I want to end off with a quote. I love this quote by George Bernard Shaw. You see, it's not on the screen, but it's okay, I remember it. You see something and you ask, why? I dream of things that never were, and I ask, why not? So can you do the things that you want to do?
Why not?
Why not? Can you be the person that you want to be? Why not? If you want to go out there and be them that impactful new you, what's stopping you? So Tim said, my line, don't say cannot, say why not? Oh, thank you everybody.